So we've got Nigel Richards back, and for those that have followed my kind of content for a number of years, they'll remember him from previous podcasts, but a lot of you will be meeting Nigel for the first time. So we're just going to give a quick recap of how I've met Nigel, how we become good friends, and first and foremost, how he's become an expert on the Chimp Paradox and mindset and all that good stuff. He's not long finished his latest certificate or course, and it was, remind me the title, Nigel, last week's course?
Yeah, it was the chimp in sport, Gary. It was specifically a day on managing the chimp part of the mind within sport.
Great, and so we're going to look at that, how it's helped him in his own running life and business, and we're also going to look at how it can help us as runners and just sport in general. So, how are you doing, Nigel? All good?
Yeah, I'm fine, thanks, Gary. Good to catch up with you again, pal. I haven't seen you since about May, wasn't it, really, when I was doing the Llangollen round. That was the last time we caught up.
That's right, mate, yeah. It's always good to catch you up. And we're going to give people a brief history of how you got started with the Chimp Paradox book, but also your own running. So I'll let you take it away, mate.
Yeah, certainly, Gary. The Chimp Paradox come about because I was invited to a self-development seminar down in London in about 2012. And I didn't really want to go, and some friends said, "Oh, come along, Nigel, I think it'll be suitable for you and you'll have a good laugh." So I went down 3 days in London with a bloke called T. Harv Eker, and he wrote on a board, "Thoughts lead to feelings, lead to actions, which lead to results." And that was what he wrote on the board the first morning. So I could have gone home with that snippet, really, but I stopped there for 3 days and had a right good time. I ended up on a table playing air guitar, and I really did enjoy it. So then I thought when I headed back up to North Wales, I thought, well, I will try that principle out, because those four words that he wrote on the board really resonated with me. So I thought I'd put them into action, and I went to Waterstones. I said, I want to try and improve my thinking. So could you give me the best book on thoughts, on thinking? And the girl handed me this book, Chimp Paradox book, and she said, that's the latest book on thinking. It's been selling really well, so give that a go. So I read it there in the shop, and that really made sense to me, the first few pages, and I took it home, read it a couple of times within a couple of weeks, and then I contacted the Chimp Paradox team, and that's how I started on the trail. And then the December the 13th, 2012, I was in Wortley Hall in Yorkshire, one of the first, I think it's one of the first ones they'd done with the public, really. There was 18 of us there, and I learnt the more intricate parts of the Chimp Paradox directly from the team. And then I took it further. I started using it in my everyday life. I started to realise that if I controlled the blood flow somewhat in a part of my brains, then I could get different results, because I understood how my brain was working and how it could possibly be holding me back, and the speed of the different parts of the brain made a difference. And then it's about 2014. Then I went on another course with them, which was a Stone of Life course, which is the integral part of the computer part of your brain, which is the most powerful part. And it was a whole day on how to set up the Stone of Life, where your values, your truths of life, and your life force lie. And I really enjoyed that day, and that really was what the clincher for me then. I really understood it whole. That's about 2 years of study then. And that was about then that I rocked up on your doorstep, wasn't it, pal? Really?
Not quite on the doorstep, but
no,
not far then.
And that's when I rocked up then. As a bit of a middle-age crisis then. 19 stone. I'd sat in a car for about 20 years as a single car driving instructor, and I decided I need to be a bit healthier. And I come to you. I heard that you were doing a bit of a running class, and I'd been trying to run from one lamppost to the next, and I couldn't do it. So I thought I was advised to come to see you for help, and I turned up that autumn evening on your little running group, and away we went, didn't we?
Yes, mate. It was, like we've talked about before, wasn't the nicest of evenings weather-wise and everything, and there was only a small group, the core group, that were there kind of every week, and then I had this new guy turn up, and he's taller than everyone else, kind of, just, like, you won't mind me saying, stuck out like a sore thumb, but not particularly in a bad way.
No.
Just the fact that I thought, oh, this poor guy has come just at the wrong time because the weather isn't great. It's going to be cold. It's going to be wet. He's probably expecting to go for a run, and I'm not going for a run. I'm just teaching people movement. But when you left that session, because I didn't know you at all, I did wonder. I wonder if he'll come back, because I was kind of quietly excited about the fact that I could change someone from a blank canvas. I am really. And you did come back, didn't you?
Yeah, I did come back, boss, and you certainly did change me. I can definitely vouch for that. And I was quite proud once when you put it on your Instagram and somebody posed the question to you: when did you think you could train runners? And you put when I got this person over the line of the Lakeland 50, wasn't it really? And I was quite proud of that, really, because I think it was quite a journey we went on, wasn't it, really, Gary? Both for myself and for you, really. Mm-hmm.
Because I was, back then, it was quite a few years ago now, and I was coaching movement and technique and stuff, and I didn't set out to become a running coach, definitely not an online running coach. So coaching you and some of the early people through events was a big deal for me, yeah. So getting you over the line was it was my own journey as well as yours. Yeah,
nice. And that's...
so at that point, sorry mate, no, go on. Like you say, very rarely do I hear someone say, I walked into a bookshop and I want the latest book on thinking, yeah? Because usually with social media and everything, people will either type it into Google or just type it into social media or something like that. So to go in, get a book, take action on that book, and still be taking action 10 years later, I think you will remain in the minority. So that's why I've come to you for your expert kind of opinion on things, I think. Give us some more insight into how you got from one lamppost to another to the Lakeland 50.
Yeah, certainly, Gary. As I said, it was great thanks to you, and maybe thankfully it was a technique session that evening when I rocked up, because if it had gone for a run, I might never have come back. But what you taught me that evening, and just striding and I can always distinctly remember when you told me to check my cadence, and I come back with this figure of 67, didn't I? You were expecting 90 or whatever. That was just an example of the way I was. Not quite, kid, not quite. So yeah, that was I think, we've discussed before, Gary, I was quite a blank canvas, wasn't I, really? Because I hadn't got a clue. I'd never been to a physical exercise class in my life, rocking 19 stone and 48 years old. So I didn't know at one step. So I was quite, you had said once before that was quite easy to teach, really, and that everything that you've just said, I'd done.
Yeah.
I just think that is such an integral part of running, is the technique. Because now when I see many people running, I can distinguish the different techniques they've got, and I would never have got to the end of the Lakeland 50 if I'd been running in the style that I was at the start. So once you set those 3 goals out for me, didn't you? You said I was going to run a 10K in March, and I was going to run another. That was an off-road 10K in Loggerheads Country Park, and then there's going to do the Flat Hill Lane a Tipping 10K in April, and then we're going to end up doing the Chester Half Marathon in May. And I thought, yeah, dream on, kid. I don't know what you're on, mate, but we done it. And that was, I think, then, on my stone of life, I wanted to be healthier, because it was one of my values. So it was quite easy to go through it, really, when the computer, which I don't know whether people understand the parts of the brain, which maybe we'll do at another time. But when that's running, it runs at times 20, and you just act irrelevant of what's happening around you, really, because it's a powerful part. And after I got that Chester Half Marathon done, you suddenly created this dream of you mentioned a Lakeland 50 mile and 100-mile race, and I just got encapsulated with that one night. I can remember you'd said it after a coaching session, and I went back and I did turn to Google that time, Gary. I didn't go to Waterstones for that one, but I did have a look on Google, and that really captured my imagination then. And I think I've told you before that if you're setting a goal in life, and I done some training with the great Bob Proctor when I done one of his mindset courses, when I was just fumbling about with mindset really before I even found the Chimp Paradox. He said that if you're setting a goal, it's got to be a grade A goal, and it's got to be something that you've never done before. It's got to be something that scares you, but you've got to just about believe it's possible. And the Lakeland 50 was exactly that for me. I'd done the half marathon. We'd entered for the Chester Metric Marathon, which was coming up in the October. But the date to enter the Lakeland 50 was then. I don't know, I think it's a ballot now, isn't it? But at that days, we had to sit there, didn't we, with at the 1 minute past 9 on the 1st of September and try to get in, which we did.
Fastest finger first, yeah.
It was, yeah. I had all those devices set out. You warned me. You said you must have your laptop, your tablet, your phone, because if any one goes down, you ain't getting in. I had them all going, and when I did get that confirmation email to say that I was in, I can tell you I was just about scared but excited at that time. So that's how it all come about. And then it was just, it was great with that first email they sent. And I don't know whether they still do send that. And it says you've not entered a race, you've entered an 11-month journey. And they were very right. And that's the way I took it. And as an 11-month journey.
Kind of that 50 miler really fit in with the journey you were on with the Chimp Paradox, didn't it? Because I remember thinking, like, as we were growing together, I guess, as coach and friend and everything like that, and going on runs together in recce's, every time you would tell me a snippet from the book or some learnings from the book, I would go, yeah, that's exactly how I've experienced it. So I was talking from experience in years of trail races and ultramarathons and good results, bad results. And then you were kind of giving me another way of explaining it via the Chimp Paradox and what Steve Peters writes about. So between us, it was... And you were probably learning that, actually, this book does make sense in real life as well, because Gary's gone through that in that, and you were starting to learn how to spot that in people, weren't you? Yeah,
exactly. So, Gary, and I was experiencing it myself as I was running, experiencing those three parts of the brain. There's the chimp, the human, and the computer. They were starting to kick in at various times, and the way you would explain it to me, I always remember one day when you said to me, I said, Christ, when I start a race, Gary, I'm just like, I think I'm going to die. And you said, that you go through that, and if you get to a certain spot, and then I realised that was the chimp kicking in, because it's basically trying to stop you, because it says, what the hell are you doing? You can't be doing this. And I understood that was a chimp response, at the start of the race, trying to stop me taking action. And that's what it's designed for. That's the chimp part of the brain, is how the human race, as a race, we've got to this level, because it's an ancient protective system within us all. But it's overly reactive at many times, Gary, and that's what holds so many people back. It's held myself back, and I can see it holds other people back in life now. But that's what it's designed for, it. And as long as you know it's there, and you can expect it and take action to manage it, then you can achieve a lot more than what you think. And I think I mentioned to you about the 3 stages of an ultramarathon, Gary. I would say that the each 3 parts of the mind is involved in each part of an ultramarathon. Take the Lakeland 50, for example, Gary. I'd say from Dalmain to Howtown, everybody's on chimp. The chimp is that lap of Dalmain. To keep your chimp in control, to think I've got to do 50 miles here, and you can see people trailing out in front of you, and going up the hill and round all that grassy banks, and you just want to be out of there. The chimp wants you out there. You need to be on the course. You've recce'd the course. You haven't recce'd this little bloody circle round the field, but to keep that chimp in control, and it remains there, because for the first part of every ultramarathon, or any race really, but in particularly an ultramarathon, for the first thirds, that I say from Dalmain to Howtown, the first 13 miles, your chimp is thinking outwards. It's thinking about it's all chimp thoughts are outward. They're never inward. They're all very often in past and future. But that's pretty much chimp in the present there, because you've got people passing you, and some have got the poles out, some haven't got the poles out. The chimp's saying you should never have started now. You should have got your poles in your hand. And there's all sorts of things like that. But basically, by the time you get to Howtown, the chimp's pretty tired. Then the blood flow, I think, then it moves back to the human as you come out of there. And you're pretty much on the human then. The prefrontal cortex, front part of your brain, where you think with reasoning and facts then. I think that's really where your course knowledge comes in, and fueling, really, knowing when to eat. And you do think in a much more logical way from Howtown to Ambleside, really. Because, you've got your Fusedale, and then you've got down to Mardale Head and then over to Kent. I think one time when the chimp does come in there is when you're coming down the back of that island called the Rig, going into Mardale Head, and that bloody bell starts ringing. Dear God, that really sets Clyde off, because you want it to be ringing for you to go into that checkpoint, and you can hear it from a mile away, can't you? And it takes ages to get there. So that's one point where the chimp does get you again there. But then, as I say, you're on your human, you're fueling, you're knowing what's coming up, you're eating away, and then once you get to Ambleside, Gary, then the human's pretty tired, and all you've got left then is the computer part of your brain. And really, it's just you against your mind. I compare it to the three parts of the brain, but I think that the first part of an ultra, it's you against the runners in front of you. For the middle part, it's you against the course, and for the last part, it's just you against your mind. Definitely, and that's where the computer needs to be programmed right. Definitely. To get you home.
And do you think, because in my experience, the chimp is unavoidable? Yeah, really. Are you looking would your advice would be to, are you just trying to limit the amount of time that you're with the chimp, or the chimp's with you, or can you work it on the chimp, or are you trying to, like, I know we've talked about distracting it in the past, because you're trying to get to that human stage, I imagine, as quick as possible in a race, are you?
Yeah, we really are, Gary, because the blood flow, if it remains flowing to the chimp, then it just keeps going to the chimp. So you've got to have, like you said, diversion methods there to take it away. And I think one of mine was like I'd use peanuts before a climb and jelly babies at the top. Because I just on my Salomon, that waistcoat I used to have on, I'd have a pocket. If I had a pocket full of peanuts and a pocket full of jelly babies, that's the way I kept Clyde at bay. And it was just distracting it. That's called throwing him a banana. You're just distracting it and just keeping it going, and that keeps the blood flow away from the chimp and more into the human part of the brain, the reasoning part. But it's also very important to have the chimp, even though it's getting all the messages from the outside, and if there's no immediate danger, if there's immediate danger, it gives you a fight, flight, or freeze reaction. Yeah, but if there's no immediate danger, what the chimp does, it looks into the computer for in a split second. This is how Steve discovered it. He was brain scanning his patients, and when he discovered that chimp was looking into the computer, that's how he understood that something was happening there. You see, and if you've got the right information installed on your computer when the chimp looks in there, that's a great help.
So
if there's nothing in there, Gary,
so that comes down to the course recceing, the practicing nutrition, managing your kit, all these things.
Definitely. For me, it does. Yeah. Because if it's looking at it, it knows what's coming up, and you know how you've got to take that part of the course. And if you know there's a big climb coming up, you can eat at the right time. And if you know you've ate at the right time, and just things like that will just get you through that middle bit, yeah.
And like you say, when you hit Ambleside, or for other people in ultramarathons, it's just the later stages of their race, and we're talking about the computer, which again is running faster than the human part. Is that right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
And that takes over. So that's when you're reliant on your own thoughts. And like we've discussed before, without me even thinking about the Chimp Paradox book and what you know from that, I always think that being in an ultramarathon, being left alone with your own thoughts for so long, you're crazy if you don't have a plan, or at least look at how you're going to deal with those, because you can easily talk yourself out of things. You can give yourself permission to fail. You can want the relief of a DNF sometimes. And that's when the computer you really have to nail that part, I imagine.
Really have to, Gary, yeah, because that's where, as long as you've got the truths of life in there, like Steve Peters, I didn't really know what truths of life were till I went on a Chimp Paradox course, and then he said, I've got 2 truths of life on mine. Life's not fair and the goalposts move. if you install them on there, and if they're installed on there with positive feeling and by repetition each day, then shit happens, doesn't it? And you just got to deal with it, So, but when the end part of it, the ultra really, your values come in there. But what do you value in life? What's those are the strong parts of it, Gary, and they'll get you through. Because I said, as I can always remember us when we were doing one of the recce's for your Lakeland 100 mile, and we're going across the Black Sail Pass. Do you remember? It was going dark, and I was starting to struggle. We had to cross a river, didn't we? And we were trying to get over the Black Sail Pass before darkness fell, and I was really
I'd already
struggling
been over
there.
once.
Whatever,
come back to yours. Go on.
But, I can always remember. You said, what are you thinking about at the moment? All I could think about was fish and chips and my daughter. That was it. And that's the sort of things that you start to think about, that gets you through.
Yeah.
But if the right programs are in there, Gary, and there's also, it was an interesting thing on that Chimp Paradox course a week last Wednesday on the Chimp in Sport. They were saying that it doesn't really apply to ultras, Gary, but it does to an extent. But it was just saying about when people are lining up on the start line. If they've got positive thoughts in their mind, it would take their reaction time down from 0.74 of a second down to 0.66 just by lining up on the start line with a positive thought that I should be here. I've prepared for this. It's the reason why I'm here. It's that sort of thing. I can remember doing that the last climb after Ambleside. You go over and then you go around the back of that. It's just before that bloody light on the gatepost you have to find on your own, and there's a bit of a climb before that.
Yeah.
And I could hear somebody coming behind me, and I could hear him coming, and Clyde was like, somebody's going to pass you now, It was in the dark, and I could hear him coming. And I just had to think, well, I'm here. This is what I wanted to do. This is the adventure I wanted. And you just got to keep going. You just got to realise where... It is a good point, Gary. Many times when we've been running ultras together or training ultras together, you've written that statement on your hand. What was it you used to write on your arm?
Right now.
Right now. Exactly right.
Yeah.
That is important. Because
that was from maybe 6, 7, 8 years ago. So way before I met you, knew anything about the Chimp Paradox book. But it's exactly what you talk about. And the reason why I had right now was to get me thinking. I used to do my checklist. How are my feet feeling? How are my ankles?
That's it.
How is everything feeling right now? What am I actually What am I actually doing right now? To keep myself in that moment, in that minute, in that mile, because I was in 24-hour races at the time. And if I was to think about the pain or the discomfort, after a certain amount of time, it wasn't getting worse. It used to be just the fact that I've been telling myself that it is for about 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 hours. Whereas if I have that reminder right now, actually, it's just the same discomfort as 6 hours ago.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And you're keeping yourself in the present moment there, because the chimp, as I said, it thinks, well, why did I maybe run that last climb wrong? Maybe I pushed myself too hard. Or you're thinking in front, how am I going to get up the next one? But if you're just thinking right now, and go through your checklist, that's a distraction method, isn't it, Gary? I can distinctly remember you telling me, how's your legs feel now? Just run a checklist up and down your body. The chimp's distracted, and before you know it, you're back on song again, aren't you? But it's a distraction method. But I think that right now is also going to your computer to some extent. Justifying why you're there. Why have you put the preparation into a race? It's pain isn't permanent, is it? It's just there for that reason.
No.
If you can just distract and go through that, you go through to the next stage, don't you?
Talking about those recce's, one of my favourite memories are when we're...
I know what you're going to say.
We've been learning... Yeah, we've been talking Chimp Paradox. You've named it Clyde, and you've got everything's under control. You're one of the most kind of stoic people I knew at the time. Kind of... So just trying to get one incident, trying to get, was it a Mars bar out of a wrapper, like when it was cold and going dark?
No, it was.
It was. Just there was no Clyde was completely in control at that point. I remember that.
He was. He really took over then, didn't he? Well, there was no holding the bugger back then. I was hungry, I was cold, I was wet, and the packet wouldn't open. Dear God, Clyde let go then, didn't he?
Fumbling around with his packet, getting so angry with yourself and with the packet. And then I just remember breaking the silence by saying, "It's not what part." Something like, "What part of the brain is this?" or something. And then you laughed.
Yeah.
And that was it. It was fine again.
Yeah, that was it. That's great. Yeah, and that's what it is. He's recognising it's there. You know.
Yeah, like we'll all have those moments as well. Like I always think of, like when you're driving in the car and everything. I'm not great at controlling things then, and I've learned other stuff like people will talk about the gap, and you have to wait 10 seconds before you react to anything. That kind of thing. It's all kind of a similar way of thinking. So Lakeland 50, that was a success. Yeah. And also, because we can touch on this as well, because you were going from one car, you were turning your business around as well, using it. So it's not just about sport and ultramarathons. How did that affect work and business?
Yes, as I said, 20 years I was a single car driving school, always wanted to expand, but as I know now, that it was the chimp part of my brain was holding me back. I continually thought about the idea, and every time the thoughts come into my mind quickly come up with excuses of why I couldn't do it, why I'd look a fool if it didn't work for me, if the instructors left me, how would I feel about it, what would other people think about me? And then by the time I went through the Chimp Paradox training, I realised that it was this part of my brain holding me back. And Steve's got a technique there, you know, where you've got to take the chimp to court. If you take the chimp to court and you prove it wrong and install that on your computer, then the chimp doesn't get a look in then because the computer takes over. So I often didn't expand my driving school because I called it Nigel Richards Driving School, and I thought it was everybody wanted me to teach to drive, which is a very common thing among business people who are sole traders. They think that only them can do the job good, and that's the way I was thinking. But so then once I learned the Chimp Paradox techniques, and I went around the country and I found other driving schools who'd expanded under their own name. There's one very big one called Bill Plant, and he started in Harrogate and he's got 700 cars. And there's one in Liverpool, Chris Kelly's got 100 cars. So I went and I studied what they'd done, and if they could do it, then I proved to me that I could do it. And I installed that on my computer, and I just went for it, and I've got a 10-car franchise now, and ever growing further. So that's how it happened. Once you prove your chimp wrong, take it to court, prove it wrong, then you can do anything really. And I think I proved it in 2 ways really. And going from a middle-aged man who couldn't run from one lamppost to the next to run the Lakeland 50, and from transforming a 1-car driving school into a 10-car franchise. And because that's still quite a few years ago now, I guess. You've continued the learning, and which is why I've asked you back, and you're very kindly going to help with the running club that coach, and also I know that you're willing to help people. So yeah, we've started this conversation. Hopefully the people at a coach are going to give us some questions and give us some case studies maybe to talk about in the future. And so I'd like you to fill in a little bit, because it's important, because I've been the same with my own running, coaching and business. It's not all plain sailing, and we're not saying that reading this book is going to completely transform it. You have to take action on it, and there will still be ups and downs, won't there? Certainly will there go.
When you completely focused on the running, and I'm sure you'll tell us more about how that affected the business a little bit. Then you had to focus back on the business. So
I did, yeah.
It can be a big distraction as well, can't it?
Yeah, certainly it was. The Lakeland 50 took a lot of my time up, and it took my eye off the ball with the business, and and it went back down again because I wasn't putting the time into it. Because it's a big old task to get myself from where I was to where I wanted to be with the running. And my mind took off the business and got distracted, and I lost a few instructors, but then once I got back on it again, if you've got the right values in your computer and the right the life force and which is an exercise that I guarantee everybody should do from the Chimp Paradox, and why you're your values and your truths of life, then there's no problem. You've done it once, you can repeat it again. No problem at all. It just becomes a way of life then. But you know what's happening between your ears, and you won't let it distract you.
And that's the key, I think, isn't it? Having the values. I know we've spoke about it before, but it is.
Yeah.
And I saw your social media post today. It's so important because basically, I'm a lot simpler when it comes to that stuff. I know my values. I've gone through that process before, and basically, when the shit hits the fan, that's what you'll fall back on, won't it? So I'm always confident, a little bit like you, that things will be okay because I've got that in place, kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, certainly, Gary.
Speak to me,
once you get... Go on,
speak to me about the values, sorry.
Yeah, if you want, you've got to sort your values out. Like, when I used to go to the Chimp Paradox course, they'd always give you a set of value cards, and I always carry them with me. And not carry them with me, but they're always here somewhere, and then I can reevaluate, because the stone of life is not a set in. It sounds very much set in stone, but it's not. And you've got to make it visible. By the way, do you remember when you first asked me to do a talk to your running group, Gary? And I turned up and I dug my stone of life out.
We had the picture and everything, yeah.
Yeah, because when I done that stone of life in May 2014. I had to choose those values, and I think it's about 50 odd cards in that pack, and you've got to try and get it down to 5. And it took me a couple of hours to do it, to actually think what are the 5 values that I wanted. And then I had to list them on a sturdy piece of card, and opposite to each one, they encouraged me to draw a diagram. And I think that's very important, that everybody should do that. I was only in the Chimp Paradox conference a week last Wednesday, and people were showing me the stone of life, and I say, that ain't no stone of life, and that's a list of words, pal. No, it's not working for me. Well, I know it's not working for you because you just listed words out and you can't see it. You haven't made it. And importantly, you haven't drawn anything on there, because I'm sure that the right side of the brain thinks in pictures. And if you want something, you've got to draw the picture as well. So when I made that stone of life and you asked me to speak to your group, we did up in the community centre, and I brought that stone of life along with me. And I was when I opened it up, everything was on there, everything that I'd drawn. There was a row of cars on there, and there was more properties, because I got a few properties, and there was a learning book to say that I learned, and all the arrows, and the last thing I wanted to do was help people, so all the arrows went back up. I just wanted to give back to people, and that's what I get most enjoyment out of in life, is helping other people. As long as I'm acting on one of those values, which I'm doing at this moment, hopefully, if I'm helping anybody, I'm acting on a value, so it's effortless for me. When I drew those values, I wrote those values out and I drew them on the card, and I had to go into a room with one of Steve's coaches, and I remember him now, a big ginger bugger he was. And I had to justify each of those values to him, and I'm not ashamed of it. It took me to tears, to get right down to those values, the core values. And I thought I just wanted to build my business for more money, for more pleasure, and it wasn't any of that. And I thought I wanted to be fitter because I just wanted to look better, but it wasn't any of that. When we got down to the 7 layers of why, it was to spend more time with my daughter, more quality time with my daughter. That's all it was. And when I come home with that value imprinted on my stone of life, then I just went for it with everything, with the running and with the business. And that's where you've got to find that core value. And I think there's a value. Everybody's running for a reason, really. I think if they find that reason, they'll run a lot better. If they go down and find out why they're really doing it, then I think that applies to anything. A lot of people talk about,
a lot of people in running, especially, may talk about their why or their reasons, but I sometimes wonder how many people actually dig deep enough. For that, like you say, that 7 layers of why is it's quite a tough exercise to go through. Sometimes it's better to get someone to take you through it, I imagine.
It is. You've got to take. Well, do you remember when we done it with a group, Gary? We said, Gary said, have a go in it now with a group. So I said, why do you want to get fitter? And they were all laughing. Then why? We went down 4 layers and there was just bloody silence, and it was really awkward, wasn't it? Do you know what I mean? But there was some really shit.
I thought you were going to cost me my business.
It went that bad, didn't it, Gary? Do you know? There was complete silence. Oh dear God, that's why I really want to run. So there was, but that's
there was
that's
silence.
The case. It was,
But like
definitely,
afterwards, it like, and we kind of were, and we didn't really push it that much. But afterwards,
No.
the feedback was really good, wasn't it?
It was.
That was the standout thing. And people, it's hard in a group. I admit that, but
It is, yeah.
kind of, you had messages, I got messages, and then people that wanted to take it forwards did.
We did,
So it's worth it for people to try and, if they are interested, we're going to have Nigel back, so you can give us some feedback, both of us. We're going to find out more about Nigel and how I've used it, I imagine. Yeah, because I think it'll be really useful for some people, mate.
Certainly, if anybody finds it useful, it'll be more than a pleasure to come along again and help.
Good, thank you, mate. We're gonna leave it there because people will have questions, no doubt, and I want people to give us those questions before we carry on a little bit further. So thank you, Nigel, mate. I will let people know underneath the videos where we can find you on social media, because very useful tips and tactics to use on Nigel Richards YouTube, Nigel Richards Instagram, even TikTok now. That's right, isn't it?
Trying a little bit, Gary. Trying a bit. Bit strange to me, but if I can.
Yeah.
I'm having a go.
YouTube's really good, mate. The quality of that's really good. So I will send people there, and they can come back to us.
That'd be great. I'd love some subscribers.
Thanks, Nigel.
All right. Cheers, Gary.
Yes. Cheers, mate. Thank you.